The ground around him was still. The men who had been fighting beside him were no longer moving. He was wounded, exposed, and the enemy was advancing across the field toward him. He had one option left. He closed his eyes. He controlled his breathing. He lay still among the dead and waited. What followed were among the longest hours of the war, measured not in territory gained or lost, but in the space between one breath and the next, in the sound of boots moving through the grass nearby, in the effort required to remain motionless while everything in the body demanded otherwise. This is the story of what survival looked like from the ground up. The Eastern Front was, by virtually every measure, the largest and most destructive theater of the Second World War. From June 1941 through to the final battles in 1945, fighting across the Soviet Union involved tens of millions of soldiers on both sides. Front lines shifted across hundreds of miles. In many sectors, the line between territory held and territory contested could change within a single day. In this environment, the chaos of individual battle could isolate a soldier within minutes. A unit could advance, be cut off, be pushed back. A man could find himself separated from his formation, in terrain now held by the enemy, with no clear path to safety. One documented form of individual survival in these conditions was feigning death, lying still among the fallen and waiting for the tactical situation to change. It required no equipment and no planning. It required only the capacity to remain motionless for as long as the danger persisted. That capacity, under the conditions of a contested battlefield, was harder to maintain than any description of it suggests. The essential situation had a consistent shape across accounts. A soldier became separated from his unit during a withdrawal or the collapse of a defensive line. He was wounded or pinned down, or both. Around him were the bodies of men from his own side. The enemy was advancing, and he was in plain sight. In some documented accounts, the decision to feign death was deliberate and immediate. The soldier understood what was approaching and chose the only cover available, the possibility that the enemy might not examine every fallen figure in the confusion of an advance. In others, the decision emerged from circumstance rather than calculation. A soldier, wounded and unable to move, found himself lying among casualties when enemy soldiers passed through. He remained still. They moved on. And so the hours began. What made these situations extreme was not just the physical exposure. It was the psychological demand placed on a person already exhausted, wounded, and operating in a state of acute fear. The first minutes were manageable. The sounds of battle nearby provided some cover. But as the fighting moved on, the silence that replaced it brought a different kind of pressure. Enemy soldiers moved through the area, checking for wounded, collecting weapons, passing through as part of the advance. Each set of footsteps that came close required the same response: complete stillness, controlled breathing, the suppression of every physical reflex the body produces under threat. The human body is not designed for this. The stress response that fear triggers produces exactly the behaviors a soldier feigning death needed to suppress: rapid breathing, muscle tension, involuntary movement. Maintaining stillness was not a passive act. It was a continuous effort that demanded sustained concentration, even as exhaustion, blood loss, thirst, and cold worked against the ability to sustain it. In winter conditions on the Eastern Front, temperature added another dimension. Lying motionless on frozen ground, unable to move to generate heat, with injuries already compromising the body's ability to regulate temperature, the physical danger of remaining still began to compete with the danger of being discovered if the body involuntarily shook. Accounts from soldiers who survived these situations describe a narrowing of awareness down to a single focal point. Not the war, not what had happened before, only the immediate requirement to remain still for the next moment, and then the moment after that. Hours passed this way. Daylight was its own problem. In full visibility, a soldier feigning death was more easily observed. The body needed to be positioned in a way consistent with a man who had already died. Any unnatural posture, any visible breathing, any slight movement could draw attention. Some accounts describe soldiers remaining in position through a full night and into the following day. The duration was determined not by the soldier's endurance alone, but by the tactical situation around him. As long as enemy soldiers were present, movement was not possible. As long as movement was not possible, the only option was to wait. The change, when it came, arrived from outside. A Soviet counterattack, a German withdrawal, or simply enough time for forward positions to move away. Whatever shifted the tactical situation was what finally made movement possible. When the footsteps stopped and the voices grew distant, the soldier faced a new problem. Moving after hours of stillness, with injuries and exposure working on the body, in territory that might still contain isolated enemy personnel, was not straightforward. In some accounts, soldiers crawled for extended distances before reaching friendly lines. In others, they were found by advancing Soviet units or by local civilians. In all cases, the physical condition of a man who had lain motionless on a battlefield for many hours, wounded, dehydrated, cold, was significantly compromised. That they were able to move at all is itself part of the record. The aftermath followed different paths. Some soldiers recovered and returned to their units. Others were removed from frontline service. Those who survived by feigning death were often reluctant to describe the experience in detail, not from shame, but because it was genuinely difficult to convey to someone who had not been there. What was it like to control breathing for hour after hour? What did it feel like to hear voices moving through the fallen, not knowing whether they would pause above you? These questions had no satisfying answers. The experience existed in the body as much as in the memory. Some accounts were recorded by historians who interviewed veterans in the post-war decades. Others exist in military archives, medical records, unit citations, official reports noting in spare language that a soldier had been found alive in a contested area, having survived by concealment among casualties. The official language never fully captured what that meant, but it preserved the fact of it. What this kind of survival holds is something distinct from other forms of wartime courage. There is a recognized vocabulary for the soldier who advances under fire, who holds a position against overwhelming odds. Those stories fill the historical record. The soldier who lies still is different. His survival required the suppression of every instinct the body possesses. It required trusting stillness when everything argued for motion. It required enduring what could not be changed, moment by moment, without the ability to act or fight back. It was not passive. Lying still on a cold battlefield, injured for many hours, while enemy soldiers moved nearby, that is not the absence of action. It is the hardest possible form of it. The war asked many things of the people caught inside it. Not all of those things involved weapons or force. Some involved lying very still and breathing very quietly and waiting for the world to shift back towards something survivable. Some of those people made it. Their accounts, imperfect, incomplete, difficult to fully translate into words, remain part of what that war looked like at the level of a single human being on a battlefield. They endured, they survived, and the record holds them. If stories like this one, survival that happened quietly, without witnesses, measured in hours rather than in action, are the kind that stay with you, consider subscribing. These are the stories worth preserving carefully. Share your thoughts in the comments below.